A chance to talk to the people of the world, and I have a chance to talk to the people of this United States. And so I want to thank the media. You're very important. We think we're few, but look at what we can do. We can talk to a lot of people. I want to express one little thing to you about talking to people. It was after the protest a couple of months, and I had a phone call that had come in from New York City, and it said that they wanted me to be on their radio station at 1:30 in the afternoon on Sunday. And I was in church, and actually in a priest meeting, up on the stand, and I had my phone where it buzzed, and I walked out of the church house and leaned up against the church house wall. And I remember the feeling, the warmth. The bricks was warm, and it was warm on my back. And the voice come over the phone and said, "Mr. Bundy, you're going to be talking to 72 nations and approximately 300 million people." And 300 million people sounds like a lot of people. My mind started to, what am I going to talk? What am I going to say to 300 million people on a Sunday day? And I wasn't sure. And I thought, well, I guess I could call them all to repentance. Then I thought, no, that's a little bit strong. And so I chose this subject of forgiveness. And I said something like this, you wives need to forgive your husbands, and your husbands need to forgive your wives. And you children need to forgive your parents. And we all need to forgive each other to make a better world. And anyway, I talked for like 20 minutes, and that mattered. What an opportunity to be able to teach the people of the world that our Heavenly Father loves them. And that if we just forgive each other, how much better world would we be living in? Now I look at these this empty chairs here. You people live in Provo, Utah. How many college students should you fill these seats full? And our children are out for school. They're not in school today. How many of these seats could we fill with our children? And then I already expressed what media can do. And the internet. We don't have to think that we're only a half a dozen of us here to visit with ourselves. We're here to talk to the world. We're here to express things about freedom and liberty. We're here to teach. Now, we're American Independent Party. I want to ask you, we just got through with Independent Day. What does independent mean? I mean, American Independent Party, what does that mean? I don't know for sure. Why do we say independent? We're American Independent Party. That means that are we different? Are we celebrating Independence Day? Are we pulling the strength of those people that have in it with fought the wars for independence? Is that what we're saying we are? We're part of that movement. We're part of that strength. We're part of that belief. We're part of that nation that they built for us and established. Is that what we're saying?
We're independent thinkers. We're not following a party line.
Okay, we're independent thinkers. Well, where's all of our kids? Where's all your kids? Why aren't they here getting some independent thinking, putting their brain? If we're going to be a party, we can't just be satisfied getting 5% of the vote. And that's probably about as much as you ever get in an election, is 5% of the vote.
Not this year.
Okay, not this year.
We're getting more than 5% this year.
Okay, I hope so. Now, I want to talk about some independent thinkers. You might agree with me or you might not. What about Sarah Palin. Well, stop and think about Sarah Palin. You know, she really don't fit in the Democratic Party. She really didn't fit in the Republican Party. But I think she's a constitutionalist. What about President Trump? Did he fit in the Democratic Party? Did he fit in a Republican Party? He's an oddball, isn't he? He's an independent thinker. My son, Ryan Bundy, is running for to be the governor of Nevada. Does he fit in the Republican Party? Does he fit in the Democratic Party? No, he don't. He's an oddball, if you want to call it. He's an independent thinker. He's an independent party member. Now, do these people, these three people I mentioned, do they have any strength? Do they represent something that we believe in? Are they the kind of people we'd vote for? Are the kind of people that would strengthen freedom and liberty in this country? You know, this country is divided. And back in our last presidential election, it was really clear. We are divided right down the middle. And we're sort of divided into several different ways, but one way is the parasite and the producer. The parasite and the producer. Sort of strong language to call half of our nation a parasite, but they are. They're the ones that are the bureaucracy. They're the ones that's on the welfare program. You know, we might even say the ones that are retired and really not producing. But the thing of it is they did produce at one time, and they have, you know, you can't really put them in that class, but they still are. There's another way to divide them. One is you're going out and working for a wage and bringing in money, making a living for yourself, your family, you're paying taxes, whatever. The other hand, you're on the government payroll. Now let me talk to you a little bit when we're on the government payroll. Let's talk a little bit about the golden calf. This was experience that I had while I was in jail. I woke up one morning, just, you know, before daylight, and I just started, like I heard a voice, and it said, "Cliven, quit worshiping the golden calf." And I mean, I heard it that clear. Quit worshiping the golden calf. And I woke up and I said, of all things I do, I don't worship the golden calf. And I tried to figure out what the message was. Why did it say for me not quit worshiping the golden calf? I took out my scriptures. And I remember about Moses coming off the mountain and found all of the children of Israel worshiping the golden calf. And I read about what the Lord said about it. Did you know the Lord was so mad at those people that he was going to destroy them all? He was literally going to destroy his children of Israel. And really, Moses actually pleaded with him, and the Lord actually had to forgive that thought. That's a pretty serious thing. If you want to read it in the Bible, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. So here I have been accused of worshiping the golden calf. And so I study and I think, and it goes on for several months. And one day I was in the library in the prison. I was privileged to go to the library. And Ryan Payne and Pete Santilli was in the library with me. And we had made a list on a piece of paper. It was a clean piece of paper. We made the list of all of the people that we thought maybe should help us. get us, some type of help to get us out of jail. And of course, up the top of it, we had President Trump and Secretary Sessions, and on down the line, we had we listed the prosecutors, and we had the judge, and we had, the Ninth Circuit Court sort of down. We had we got these attorneys and everything all listed down here. And part of the attorneys were public defenders, so they were listed down here. And then all of a sudden, something kind of, every one of them that was on this list was getting a government paycheck. Every one of them. Even my attorney, which I was paying, but he was still a public defender, and he wouldn't make a real stand for me because he didn't want to offend the judge, didn't want to offend the court. So everybody on this list was receiving a government paycheck. I mean, these aren't the welfare people. These are basically all of our bureaucrats here. And even our own lawyers and even our own judges and all that, they all received a paycheck from and what was we doing? Us three men was in jail. We had listed all of these men trying to find some relief. Expecting Sessions to send a investigation. We tried to, and we were praying that all these people would help, somebody would help. Well, all of a sudden we realized, hey, we're not worshiping God. I know we did pray and ask God to help us, but here we got a great list in here, and so this become the golden calf. These people are the golden calf. I was expecting them to help me. I wasn't putting all of my faith in God to help me. I was expecting man to help me. That was a great lesson to me. From that day on to this day, I'm not worried about what man thinks. I'm not looking towards the judge or the lawyers or the prosecutors or even President Trump to help me. That's not where my help comes from. And I think as a nation we need to understand that we have a God, and He is our Creator, He is our Father, and He has established a government for us, an inspired document. And that inspired document is the Constitution of the United States. There's times that I have said, our Constitution of the United States is an inspired document. And then I've asked the group, do you believe in the Bible? And most people believe in the Bible. And I'll ask, well, who is the author of the Bible? And most people can understand that the Bible is inspired by God through His prophets, or however it happens. All of the things in the Bible are basically came from God. They've been inspired to man. And then I say, well, isn't that the same process that took place on our Constitution? Did our God inspire our founding fathers? And did they write that inspiration down and create a Constitution? And I believe this Constitution is a blueprint for this United States. And I believe that same blueprint will fit any nation and people in this world. If they follow the Constitution of the United States, I guess would become almost a perfect world. All of the governments would be proper. And what did our founding fathers establish? We had a revolution. Our founding fathers fought the greatest army and the greatest nation in the world. Britain, Great Britain. And let me back up just a little bit here. Do you realize for 250 years since our pilgrimage people, our fathers came to this nation, For 250 years, we never had freedom and liberty in America on this continent. I thought that's why our pilgrims come here, is for freedom and liberty. But after 250 years, we had to fight a war against a nation, the greatest nation in the world, the one that had the greatest army. Why did we have to fight them? Because they were a central government that basically had unlimited power. And they was ruling over we the people of on this land. To the point that we were ready to give up our lives, our fortunes, our everything for one thing: freedom. Freedom. Freedom from a central government. Now, when we accomplished this, our founding fathers was not going to establish another central government to live under. And that's why they created the Constitution of the United States, giving the United States only very little power, and retained all the rest of the power for the states and the people. And now we're down the road almost another 250 years. And what have we done? We've created a central government again. And it's a depressive government. One with great power. And I'll tell you a little bit about their power. You know, at the Bundy Ranch, just one branch of the federal government has their own army. And they come against the Bundy family and we, the people that was supporting the Bundy family, with an army. Not just in words, but an army with guns. Now, who come with this army? There was about, never known exactly the number, but I've always said 200. I think the count was like 213 that had armed heavy armor and long rifles. And they pointed their guns at we the people. Who pointed their guns at we the people? Weren't they Americans? Remember what side they are on? Remember the division? These people are on this side. These were the bureaucrats. These were the parasites. And what did they do? They pointed their guns at this other side. We, the people that were producers. People that believed in freedom and liberty. That's pretty serious when and they were in the name of the government. We're in the name of we, the people. And it's pretty serious when the government, our government, the government of the United States of America, points their guns at we the people. But when we get to that point, we're something pretty bad, wrong. This was only one agency. This wasn't the whole ABCs. This was only the BLM and the Park Services involved. But these bureaus, like the Indian bureaus, and like all of these bureaus now have their own armies. They don't have an army to go fight against even Mexico or Russia, whatever. Them armies are not there. All of these guns that they've collected and all these armored vehicles they've collected are not to fight against the foreign governments or nations or intruding people. They're to fight against we the people. That's where we are in this world today, in this American. We're here ready to fight against ourselves. And why? Because we're divided so closely. Now, when this last election, when we voted in President Trump, that I felt like the Lord give us one more chance. He gave us a chance to sort of straighten this world out, this country out, and really the world, but this country. The Lord gave us one more chance, and what are we going to do with that chance? Are we just going to ignore it, or are we going to do something? I want to take just a minute here. Can I get somebody to hold this flag? This, yeah, this right here. Hold it right over here so I can sort of look at it. I want to talk about this flag just a little bit. I want you to see the blue on this flag. I want you to see that blue represents a bunch of people. And those people are the Democrats. Okay? I want you to look the red on the flag. And the red represents a bunch of people. And they're the Republicans. Okay? So that flag represents sort of we the people, the Democrats, and the Republicans. Now, do you know that the Democrats are not really happy with their party? And you know the Republicans are not happy with their party? You know, and we the people in general, we really can't accept the Democrats. You people, and I'm talking to the media, the people of this country, can't really accept what the Democrats say they stand for. But we also really can't accept what the Republicans stand for and how they act. We the people are unhappy. I'm talking about the general population of America. We're unhappy with these two parties. And we're not sure there's any difference in them. And we definitely understand what Trump says when he says there's a swamp here. They are a swamp. These are our representatives, and they're definitely a swamp. A dirty, stinking swamp. And I want to ask you about what's the white on the flag stand for? What does the white on this beautiful flag stand for?
All of us.
Could it stand for our Constitution?
Virtue.
Virtue. White, virtue. Could it stand for purity? Could it stand for what's right?
How about peace?
What about it standing for Independent American Party? So, we know what the blue stands for. We know what the red stands for. What does the white stand for?
IAP.
Independent American Party. Could that be our slogan? Could that be our slogan? Well, okay, I don't want to ever come to one of these meetings that I don't see this thing full of young people here, because they need to understand liberty and freedom. Isn't that what the white stands for? Isn't the white stand for the proper form of government? You know, isn't the white what stands for the inspired document? Thank you. You know, we live in a promised land. We live in the most productive land on earth. And we have so many resources and so much wealth in that sense. We have got to strengthen and take advantage of these things. It's not for us as older people, what we're trying to do and accomplish. It's got to be for our kids, the younger generations. They're the ones that need to be understanding about the white on the flag. They need to be the ones that understands about the inspiration of our founders, our founding fathers. I don't know how we get this taught. Remember I said there's a line here? And, but when we sort of decided that this one side of the line was the golden calf we keep a looking towards. Let me talk to you a little bit about another thing here. This golden calf could be the money that the government puts into things. What about the money that the government puts into our school system? Aren't we, if you're on a school board and you're out here looking for money, well, gee whiz, if here in Provo, if the government's going to come in and give you $50 million or even maybe lots more, maybe $1 billion for your school district, boy, I'll tell you, that sure looked good, wouldn't it? And when you take that money in to your school district, what comes with that money? One is there's a contract. You're going to create a contract, aren't you? You're going to take their money and they're going to have terms and conditions. And who's going to sign for it? So your county or your school board is going to sign for this money and the government signs, and so now you got a contract. And the contract comes with terms and conditions. Now I always pass up the word, maybe my wife. What are they always talking about with the school? They don't like the government terms and conditions. Somebody help me with this. Common Core. Okay. So now we the people read the Common Core, and you don't like the Common Core language, and that's part of the terms and conditions. And everybody comes to the meeting and throw a big fit. They don't like Common Core, they don't like what's being taught in their school. The only thing I have to say about that is, did you spend the money? Yeah, you spend that $1 million or $1 billion or whatever it might have been. You've already spent the money, now you're complaining about the terms and conditions. See, it's not the government's fault. It's you people's fault. You guys took the money, signed your name on the bottom of the contract, and spent the money, and now you're going to complain about Common Core. The same thing happens in your police force. Your sheriff county sheriff down here, or your city sheriff, policeman, he is really happy to bring in that, like in Las Vegas, they claim bringing in that $6 million or whatever. You know, that can raise our benefits a little bit, our wages, we can buy a couple more police cars. Everything's great. But there's terms and conditions. And when you sign that contract, you've got to live by terms and conditions. You spend the money, you think it's great, but whose money? You brought in that bureaucrat power in there. Now this applies to what happened on Bundy Ranch, and it applies to what happened to the Hammonds. I'm going to try to talk to you a little bit about both of these things. Contracts, very important. We didn't know, I don't think anybody ever spoke about contracts until Cliven Bundy comes along. And it takes me a lifetime to start understanding what's wrong with this country. How does the federal government have so much power? How does the federal government claim they own 90% of the state of Nevada? And I don't know what it is, it's like 70-something% of Utah. How does the federal government claim they own these things? Well, I want to tell you, it's contracts, and I'm going to go back and tell you a little bit about our Constitution. I'm talking about land issues here now, which relates right on to all these other contracts. Well, I want to talk to you about Bundy Ranch, because that's I can talk that way. That's home to me. Now, Bundy Ranch is in southern Nevada, in Clark County, and if you know where Lake Mead is, Lake Mead, I'm east of Lake Mead, from Lake Mead to the Arizona border, and you know, approximately 80 miles from Las Vegas. It's just part of the Mojave Desert, dry desert land. But what I do there is I convert the renewable resource, which is the brush and the grass, I convert the brush and the grass into edible commodity. It's red meat. It's good to eat. It's food for dinner. That's what I do. And how do I do it? I do it by utilizing the natural resource, which is a renewable. That's what I do. Now, why would the federal government be mad at somebody that's a producer, that's crazy enough to live his life on the desert and try to chase some wild cows around? Well, that's a good question, isn't it? Why would they want to shoot Cliven Bundy in the head or put him in jail for a lifetime? You know, I'm sort of getting off the subject a little bit, but I think I've got something you need to understand. Who wants that done? Which side here? You know, the producer, the guy that's out there shoveling, driving the heavy equipment, pounding the nail in the wall, putting the roof on, even working in the offices or whatever. You know, he thinks beef tastes pretty darn good. And he don't really want to ruin this ranching program. He would like to maybe support it and keep it going. But on this other side, they're bureaucracies. And they really don't see any need for beef. They don't really see any need for that resource to be being used. They would just as soon have it, let the desert tortoise have it, or the kangaroo rat have it, or the bird have it. You know, that's how they think. It's not no skin off their back. But there's one thing that they might want to make sure that happens. They want to make sure that bureaucrat has unlimited power. They want to make sure that the business of being a bureaucrat grows. In other words, it's a natural thing. For example, if the BLM has an office and they have 10 people working in that office, what do they want? They want a bigger budget. They want 20 people to work in that office. They want that office to become 200 people. And that 200 people has more power and influence. And it just grows and grows. And that's what's happened in every one of these agencies. It's grew and grew until we're to the point, we're breaking it. We're going to break. And again, what do they want? Unlimited power. Okay, now let me go back and what they wanted to say, like, Bundy Ranch, the federal government owns it. And you're only allowed a privilege to have a license or a permit or whatever, or allotment or whatever they want to call it. It's only a privilege that you have this ability to, raise cattle on government land. Well, is it a privilege, or did my forefathers came in there in a wagon, and they had everything they owned on that wagon? They had a team of horses pulling it. They might have had a milk cow behind it. There were no roads. The only people that had been in the country where I'm at on Bundy Ranch before is the Spanish, maybe trailed across that country a few times. Other than that, there was no white man ever been there. And when my forefathers came there, they pulled up to a place to camp at night. And I want to ask you, what did they need? What was the first thing they needed when they pulled up on that old desert?
Water.
Water. The very first thing they needed was water. And when they unbuckled that horse from that harness, and they led that horse up to either a spring or a creek, and when that horse took its very first sip, he was began beneficial use. The first white man to ever make beneficial use of that renewable resource. And that's where my rights start. When that horse took the very first sip, he started to create a beneficial use. When the milk cow come and when the other uses come, that traveler started to create beneficial use. And you know that right, he was establishing a right, preemptive rights created through beneficial use. And that's what Nevada law protects. Nevada law protects my rights. Now what was the next thing they needed?
Shelter.
Okay, they couldn't eat shelter, but that horse needs to eat something, don't he?
Food. Yeah.
So when that horse reaches over and bites a clump of grass, what did he do? He made beneficial use of a new renewable resource. The first. So he's the first to get the water, he's the first to drink the grass, and that's what the law protects. Is that right? I was first come. And that law was established even before this country was established. Even the Mexicans established that law. And it's, in other words, if you make beneficial use first and you can make continued use, then you have a good property right. And that's what Bundy Ranch has a good property right. For the last 150 years, we've continued to make beneficial use, backed up by Nevada law. Yeah, we gotta claim it, use it, and defend it. That's what we have done. Claimed it, used it, and we defended it. We put our life on the line to defend them rights. Now I want to talk about title a little bit. Remember, the federal government says they own 90% of Nevada. Now I want to talk about Bundy Ranch a little bit. Bundy Ranch used to be owned by the Indians, the Native Americans. And Bundy Ranch used to be owned by the nation of Spain. And Bundy Ranch used to be owned by the nation of Mexico. And Bundy Ranch used to be a territory of the United States after the treaty with the Mexicans. And Bundy Ranch was, say, supposedly a part of Nevada, but it really never was, but part of the territory of Nevada. So what happens to the territory of Nevada? In 1864, Congress made this territory of Nevada, allowed the people of the territory of Nevada to establish a state. And so in 1864, Nevada became the state of Nevada, not the territory of Nevada, the state of Nevada. And Congress admitted the state into statehood, and so now Nevada becomes part of America. It has the Constitution. It's a nation. It's a state within the nation of the Union. In other words, it joined the Union, and so it's a sovereign state. Now, when Congress, in Article 4, Congress says that, or the Constitution says that Congress has power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations over territories. Now, when Congress made the territory of Nevada a state, what did they do? They disposed of it. They disposed of their property. They had unlimited power when it was a territory, but now they don't have unlimited power. The state of Nevada becomes equal with the original 13 states. And what does our Constitution say? That our Constitution says the federal government has limited power, and all the rest of the power belongs to the state and its people. So now the territory of Nevada has become a state of Nevada, and it has given the United States some limited power. Some of those powers still exist to protect them from foreign nations and things like. You know, another thing that the Constitution or the people of Nevada give the United States is something like weights and measurements. You know, in Washington, D.C., a foot is the same length as in Nevada. That's something that Nevada shouldn't be lengthening the foot out. That's something that the nation should have something to say about. That's something that Washington, D.C. should have something to say about. That it weights measured, that it weighs a certain pound's a pound, and a foot's a foot. That's something that a central government should have a little power over. But central government shouldn't have any power over what happens to the land, what happens to the grass and the water on Bundy's Ranch. Now let me finish my title. We've got the state of Nevada established. But the area of where Clark County, Las Vegas, and Nevada for Bundy Ranch was not part of the territory of Nevada. It was a territory of Arizona. And so in 1866, Congress disposed a part of the territory of Arizona and made Clark County, made Bundy Ranch. So Bundy Ranch was never part of the territory of Nevada. It was part of the territory of Arizona, and it was disposed of by Congress and made part of the state of Nevada. Now, when Congress disposed of it, what did I say they did? They lost congressional power. They lost congressional power. And on Bundy's Ranch, the United States lost congressional power until 1934, when the Taylor-Grayson Act was established. What was happening in the West in 1934? Well, in the West, all of the western states had been grazed by livestock, by sheep and cattle. And all of the western United States had preemptive rights created. But there was no boundaries. There was no place where there was lines, property lines. The different ranchers and stuff said, well, this is my line, and they controlled it with a gun or whatever. But there was never no lines, and no adjudication. And so in 1934, there was range wars. There was one rancher here, one rancher here, one rancher here. They overlapped each other. Then we had a herd of sheep go across it, causing overgrazing and all these kind of problems. It was range wars between ranchers. And so Bundy said the Taylor-Grayson Act is not constitutional. And I really believe it's not. But I do accept the Taylor-Grayson Act as being something maybe the government should have something to do with. Talking about the United States government. I really think this war should have been, should have been settled in the state and local courts. But it was all over the western United States. So I accept Congress having something to do with this. And so what did the Congress do? They passed the Taylor-Grayson Act. And the Taylor-Grayson Act now was to do three things. Congress mandated, okay, that the Taylor-Grayson Act would monitor this adjudication. So they monitor. They would survey and keep records. Now the Taylor-Grayson developed into what we call BLM now. And so these are the three things that the Cliven Act give the federal government to monitor, survey, and keep records. Now, was the was the government going to be the judge? Was they going to be the judge where these lines were? Where the adjudication was going to be? No. They was not going to be the judge. Was the states going to be the judge? No, they weren't going to be the judge. Was the counties going to be the judge? No, they weren't going to be the judge. So who's going to judge where these lines and boundaries are? Well, what they did is they created districts. And the grazing, the livestock people, they nominated the committee, and they elected the committee. And so this committee was called Advisory Board or Grazing Board, and they were to be the judge. So who's going to be the judge? We, the people of our own industry, were going to judge where the lines were. That sounds pretty good, don't it? And this went on from 1934 up until about the 1960s. And by then, this were all adjudication like Bundy. I knew where my line was, I knew where my line was. And the government had done their job. They had monitored, they had surveyed, and they had kept records. And guess what? We're talking about the grazing fees now. The rancher contracted the federal government to do what? A service. And how much did they pay the federal government to do this service? They paid them 6 cents per AUM. Who knows what an AUM is? An animal unit per month. How much it takes to feed a cow or take care of a cow for 1 month. So the rancher paid for each cow that he had out here on this range. They paid the federal government 6 cents to do this service. So the government was paid by the rancher to do this service. Now, when 1960 comes along and adjudication's done, what do we need? We need fences. We need a boundary fence here, a boundary fence there. We might need water lines and stuff. And so the fee went up to like $1. Well, the government didn't get the whole dollar. The government got 12.5% of the dollar. So they got 12.5 cents for their service. What was their service going to be? Well, they're still going to monitor where the fences and all these things are going to take care of this range improvement thing. What happened to the 87.5 other cents of that dollar? What do you think happens to that dollar? The rest of that dollar? Anybody got any idea?
Fences, gates, stuff to maintain.
Yeah, it went back, it was to come back on the land as range improvements. See, they need range improvements. So now the rancher is contracting the federal government, and they're saying, we're going to pay $1. They're signing the grazing permit, or license, or lease, or however you want to put it. And the government is going to monitor this process. It's going to keep 12.5 cents for their wages, for their trucks, for their office, their secretary. Who's paying for it? The rancher is. And then this 87% is going to come back as range improvements for wire and post and all these types of things. Okay, that still sounds pretty good, don't it? Well, now we're getting into the 70s and up in these years, and now they're starting to call this land multiple use. Now we're starting to get the environmental community involved, and we're getting fish and wildlife, we're getting all these different entities involved. Well, you know, what was happening now is a bureaucrat was building, when it was Taylor Grazing, it was only 3 or 4 people. And now it's getting hundreds of people. And now that we're starting to call it, instead of Taylor Grazing, we're calling it BLM, Bureau of Land Management. And the rancher's still signing these contracts, and but they're more bureaucrats now than the rancher can pay for. And so what do? They go to Congress, and they get Congress to allot them some money. And Congress can allot them a lot more money than that $1 AUM, or that 12.5 cent per AUM. So now Congress starts paying the bills. And the bureaucrat grows and grows, and it's grown to this point. And so now we have a bureaucrat over here that's got an army. The ranchers can't pay his wages or his expenses, but Congress now puts billions of dollars into this system. And this system has grown so big that now they got their army. Now I want to explain one thing about Bundy owing money, okay? The media will say that Bundy owes $1 million in back taxes or back grazing fees, okay? And Bundy says it's all a lie. I have never been billed. I've never seen an invoice or anything. I have only seen one bill back like almost 30 years ago. And that bill was for like $8,000. And you know, that bill was because BLM come out and they counted my cows, and it cost them $8,000 to count my cows. And I'm not going to pay them to count my cows, to count my own cows. So I'm saying I don't owe the BLM anything. Now, there's another thing to this. I don't have no contract with the federal government. Remember, these ranchers are all signing these contracts? Well, about 25 years ago, I basically said, let me give you a little background. I have 52 neighbors in Clark County. They're rancher neighbors. And the federal government, through their administrative, bureaucratic regulations, they have crowded all 52 of my neighbors out of business. And so now they're trying to get me to sign a 10-year contract or a contract that has terms and conditions, full effect of terms and conditions because of the desert tourist thing. And this terms and conditions would basically put me out of business in just almost immediately, in a few months, whatever. And so I said, you know, I'm not going to, here's what I said, no. I'm going to sign that contract. And then a little later I said, hell no, I'm not going to sign that contract. And then so what I did is I took and wrote the Solicitor of the United States a constructive notice, and I told him just that. I said, I'm not going to contract. Well, first I said, I don't need your service anymore. Remember what the service is? Bureau of Land Management, they're managing my ranch. I said, I'm not going to sign the contract because I don't need your management anymore. I actually thanked them for their services and said I no longer need your services. And I'm not going to pay your fees, and I'm going to do my own range improvements. Remember that 87.5 cents? So I'm going to do them improvements. So for over 25 years, I haven't had a contract with the United States government. So my defense, I don't want to go on too long here, but remember, I want people to understand, the contract is what allows the federal government to have control. Because like I explained with it, like the school contract, whatever, when you sign that contract, you're signing a contract with the federal government. In the Constitution, contracts are legal. Contracts are part of our Constitution. And so if we sign a contract with the federal government, in Article 3 of our Constitution, you'll find out the judicial power, they have power over you. Because why? Because you're a party with the government. If you're not a party with the government, these courts don't have no power over you. But when you sign a contract, then if you don't abide by the terms and conditions, they'll take you to a federal court. Now, when did a rancher ever win anything in a federal court? In the whole history of time, the rancher has never won anything in the federal court over a public land dispute or any other dispute. You know why? Because the rancher has signed a contract giving the federal government unlimited power. Now with Bundy, I didn't sign the contract, so the federal government don't have unlimited power over me or over my ranch. And the courts don't have no power over me. Because why? Because I'm not a party with the federal government. They don't really get that, but that's my defense is 15 seconds. 15 seconds. The federal government has spent up to $200 million trying to convict me and my sons. $200 million was their budget to put us in jail for life. So my 15-second defense. I graze my cattle only on Clark County, Nevada land. And I have no contract with the federal government. Federal government, you have no jurisdiction or authority. Neither does your court. Thank you. I'm a little concerned about going too long, I guess. That's why.
Can I interrupt you? If somebody, if you promise not to lose your thought, if we need to take a 2-minute break, or do we need a break? If you need to get up, don't just go take a break. And if you can keep talking, we're here.
Okay, because it was asked to talk a little bit about the Hammonds and about what happened at the Bundy Ranch in the Hammonds. And I'd like to do that. I think I'd like to let my wife get up and speak a little bit here. And then I don't want to be run on and on. I want to teach you something. I want you to understand how important this party is to America. It's time we have that third party. And it's time to make that white on that flag stand out. And that's really why I'm here. I'm not here to try to overdo this. But listen to my wife a little bit, and then I'll get up and tell you a little bit about the Hammonds, and maybe a little bit about the story about the Bundys. If you have time to do that.
Yes.
Yes.
This woman has stood by me, and I just all I can do is express how much I love her. And without a good man, without a good woman, a man don't amount to much. Getting back to the religion thing, the first thing God did, or the Lord, or however you want to put it, when he was dealing with Adam, what did he do? He told Adam basically, you can't get this done alone, you need to help me. And that's true. A man does need to help me, and I've had a good one.
Well, how do I follow that? First off, I wanted to say good morning to the people of this great American country. We have our youngest son serving a mission in Chile. And as he went and applied to go on his mission, one of the questions they asked was there anything else he could add that would help him in preparing him for his mission? And he said, my family has a very well-known name in this country and around the world, and I would like to go somewhere where I preach the gospel and serve the Lord as I should as a missionary, not as someone with the name Bundy. He was called to the Rancagua, Chile mission, and he is doing an absolutely amazing job, which any mother would say of her missionary. He had been there about 6 weeks when he said, Mom, the Chilean people love the Bundys, and yes, they know who we are. It has helped him open doors, but more importantly, it has helped him with the conviction and the spirit that comes from a family that stood on principle, that loved their neighbor, and loves the gospel. And for that, I am very grateful. And as most of you know, I am the rancher's wife. That's what I'm known as. one of my favorite cowboy quotes is, "The best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today." So saddle up, let's ride. And one thing that I try to do is ride through this journey with spirit, strength, and conviction. Now, I've also said that we have a large family. I've been blessed to be able to raise 14 children. And along with that, I have 15 beautiful in-laws that go along with that. And in 2 weeks after I have twin girls born, we're going to have 70 grandchildren. So if America will not stand, I'm going to raise a generation that's going to stand for you. I was asked to tell my story, why, what happened, what's next, and what makes me a strong woman. That's kind of a big agenda to follow. I think I was born a strong woman. I had a strong mother, strong grandparents. In short, our love for America came with the Pilgrims on the Mayflower. Both Cliven and I had ancestors that came on the Mayflower. They fought the Revolutionary War. They were pioneers who fought for freedom of religion, who were kicked out of the very nation that they loved, America. And they continue to love America today. We've taught our family, and we were taught by our ancestors, to love your neighbor. This is where the Hammonds come in. This is where the Finncombs come in. We learn to love Mr. Finnecombe, for he had a heart of gold, and he knew the Constitution inside and out. And he said, there are some things worth dying for, and freedom is one of those. And he had that strength and that conviction, and he stood for that. And he now has a wife that is following in his footsteps, learning as she goes, because she was staying home taking care of the family and didn't totally understand, but boy does she ever now. And what a beautiful woman that she is. And she wants to vindicate her husband's death and let the world know what an amazing patriot, man, father, and husband that he was. My husband's family settled in Bunkerville, Nevada, on the Arizona Strip, and my family settled in Wyoming, in the Star Valley area. They were poor, they had very little, but they were strong in spirit, and they loved liberty, and they loved this nation. They were cowboys, all of them. It's a way of life, a custom, and a culture. They loved their neighbor, and we followed the spirit. And this is where we come to the Hammonds. We saw another cowboy family facing the abuse once again of an overreaching government who feels that they have power where they don't belong. And for that reason, Cliven contacted our son Ammon, who had just moved to Idaho, and it was not very far from the Hammond family. He said, look into this, and let's see if the media is right or wrong in this story. And of course we found out they were very wrong. We found out once again that the government had scared the Hammonds to the point that they didn't want to stand anymore. They were tired and they were worn out. And so we tried to go there and lift them up with strength, once again, spirit and conviction. And I believe that we did. I think that their story is not over. I think that they had to learn. And I think they did that as well. And I kept in touch with Susie Hammond, who was Dwight's sweet little wife, and how much fun we had. And I'd call her and we would share a few tears and a few laughters. And when I called and said, they're coming home, they've been pardoned. And she says, well, it'll take 2 or 3 days. And I said, no, I don't think so. I says, I think they'll be out today. And she says, well, I'm sitting here in my nightgown and my neighbors are all here in their nightgowns too. And I said, stay in there, he's gonna be home tonight. He didn't get home till the next morning. But what a beautiful, strong family they are as well. And I might add, the other men that were arrested with my husband, we call the Bundy 19. They all have rich heritages and professions of their own. They are not cowboys, but they have an interest in freedom and in our country. They're electricians, they're construction workers, they're mechanics, they're firefighters, they're artists. But one thing they all have in common is they love America. They love this country, and they'll do whatever it takes. I had a son, my son Mel, who said, I didn't stand so my children wouldn't have to. I stood so they would know how. That's what the Bundys and those that stood with us did. We tried to teach America how it's done. I think the federal government doesn't quite understand that. Never had anybody dare stand as tall in the saddle as we did, literally. They never had men who wouldn't plea out in prison. They would say, you can take a choice, you can stay here the rest of your life because we have so much on you that you will die in prison. Or you can take this plea deal, which of course makes them look good because they win the case. They put pressure on so many of them that they did plea out. But half of them stood strong and said, we did nothing wrong. And I might add, those that did make a plea said, we will plead under perjury in the court. But you see, fear sometimes overrides our conviction. And we pray for those men that pled out. So where do we get this spirit? What makes us so strong? What makes us, and where is conviction found? In 2:14, the Bundy family, Cliven and I, prayed, and we said, we're just not going to take it anymore. And Cliven's famous thing is, we'll do whatever it takes. They try to make that sound like that's something horrible. But heck, we had no idea what they were going to do to us, so we just said, we'll do whatever it takes to keep our cattle out where they belong, where they love. We exercised our First and Second Amendment rights, which we had a right to do. We stood for the people of Clark County, the citizens of the state of Nevada, and we had good people, many, many good people, and I might add from both sides of the veil that came and stood with us against an overreaching government, against all of the American people. We pled with our sheriff to do his job because we recognize him as the one that has ultimate authority in the county. We had no response. We faced down the tyrannical government, and as you guys know the story, they told us that they had called it off. So when we went down to get the cows, we did not go, Cliven and I, but as we sent the group to go get the cows, is when they ran in to the 200 plus agents in full riot gear, pointing guns at us. I had someone ask me if I had a gun, and I said, yes, I do. And they said, well, do you know how to use it? And I said, yes, I do. And they said, well, have you pointed it at anybody? And I said, no, but I've sure had a whole lot of guns pointed at me. Strength, courage, and conviction, faith in our Lord Jesus Christ. And the Spirit was on the mountain that day. My missionary stood, come on the horse, and he came around. And they thought they were just going to go right through and let those cows go. And as they came to a halt, there he said, there I was, and they were in a stacked position, meaning that you shoot till you're, military people know what that is. It doesn't really matter. They were ready. And over the loudspeaker, they were saying, we have permission to shoot, we have an order, we have permission. And my 6-year-old said, I looked over at my brother, you know, and he says his eyes were about this big around. And he said, I looked over at my brother-in-law on the other side, he was pulling down his hat. He said, I looked straight ahead. And he said, in my heart, I said, it's a good day to die. And he says, I wondered how that would feel. But he said, I was not afraid. The Spirit of the Lord stood with us. Do what is right. Let the consequence follow. They fought hard to come up with something that they could convict these men on. Took them 2 years to come up with their conspiracy theories. Everything that they charged my family or the Bundy 19 with is what they did to us, not what we did to them. My husband sat in jail for 700 days. But you know what? We would do it all over again for the freedom of America. No. Was it easy? Heck no. I had personally 26 grandkids without a daddy. I had 4 daughter-in-laws that cried every day. I had to be tough. I had to say, this is God's will. We prayed about this and we know that. And I can tell you right now, there wasn't a day that we didn't feel the Spirit of the Lord some way, somehow. And I don't know of any other family that could last that long without the breadwinner in their home and still have full tummies, maybe swollen eyes from crying a little bit. But we had a choice to make, and that was what was our attitude going to be. And our attitude was, we're going to get her done. And we're going to do whatever it takes. And if they end up in prison for the rest of their life, that's the Lord's will, and He'll take care of us. And He did. I can remember as I sat there, as my son was planning his mission, he says, Mom, I need to be here with you. And I said, son, we need the blessings of the Lord. We have planned on you going all your life, and we're not going to put it on hold. We're going to go on with life. And we're going to let America see that nothing is going to stop freedom. Nothing is going to stop conviction. And we're strong enough to do it. And hopefully we showed some of you how to as well. So today, where are we headed and what is our next move? Cliven's the only one that can answer that. I just go along with him and pray for him every day. I want you to know that of the 700 days he sat in prison, 8.5 months of that was in solitary confinement, where he did not see the light of day for 8.5 months. And if you don't think that's not hard on a wife that knows that her husband lives for the sun, for the dirt, for the earth, for the cows, and for his kids. But there wasn't a day that he didn't feel the strength from the prayers of people like you that prayed that he would be strong. And he was. And he did, and he made it. The days of being innocent until proven guilty are over. But step by step, one by one, person by person, each one of you, we can change this. For I've read the scriptures, I know how the story ends. I see where we are today as we read the scriptures. But I know that this is the promised land, and I know that God is going to help those that try to help themselves. God is going to be with the Hammonds. They don't have the gospel that we have. They have faith and they have determination, and they have strength. I know that God is going to help Sister Finnecum as she fights to clear her husband's name, as she tries to educate America to the wonderful man that he was, and as to how he loved the country. And she's actually even becoming a cowgirl. You know, she was an army brat. She moved around, didn't know a whole lot about that. But she's actually learned to love riding horses, to love watching little cows mother up with their moms, and the beauty of nature. And she has become one of my best friends. What a strength she is. Don't ever let anyone break your soul. Don't get discouraged. You have to stand on your own 2 feet and fight your own battle in your own way. The way the Bundys did it will be different than the way that anybody else will do it. But I can tell you that hopefully in the history books, it will be written the right way. If we have to homeschool our kids to teach them about it, we have to homeschool our kids. Cliven and I chose not to do, well, I did for a couple of years because they wouldn't teach the way I wanted, so I said, fine, I'll pull them out. And they panicked a little bit because, like Cliven says, they want that federal money that comes in. We live in a small enough town that as the kids would come home and they'd say, do you know what they said in government class? And we could say, do you know what it's supposed to say in government class? And we were able to teach the Constitution through that. And we have some good children, and for that I am very thankful and very blessed. Today, above all, we must pray for our divine and sacred Constitution. We need to pray for America, this land of liberty. We must preserve it for our posterity, and we must stand together, for there is strength in numbers. It's a battle that must be won, for liberty is in our blood. Let's do whatever it takes. Thank you.
I'll take just a few minutes and just talk to you a little bit about the Hammonds. I want you to understand that I never knew the Hammonds, never heard of them really before my son Hammond went and visited them. To just go through this story real fast so you understand how Bundy family gets involved in this thing. I did hear that the Hammond family was having problems, the Rankin family in Oregon. I did hear that, I don't know whether I ever heard that they was actually going back to jail or anything, but there was a concern within the Rankin community, enough that I heard about it. I called my son Hammond and I just asked him if he'd heard about the Hammonds. He hadn't heard about the Hammonds. And he said, I'll study it a little bit. So he spent all night on the internet, I don't know, trying to newspaper, everything he could find about the Hammonds. And then he called me back in the morning and he said, Dad, he said, you know, I've been studying the Hammonds all night and I just feel like I need to go and see what they're all about. So he leaves his home in Idaho and goes to Harney County and visits with Stephen Hammond and Dwight Hammond. Spends, I guess, probably most of the day, maybe even part of the next day. He goes out and works with them, I don't know, if the building fence or whatever they're doing. At least Steve Hammond, he worked with him. And then he goes back to his home and he said, calls me and he said, Dad, these people are really good people. He said, they're hard workers, they're producers. He says, they're really good people. And he said, what's happening to them? We just can't let that happen. And then he called me back like a week later. He said, I feel like I need to go and check out the Hammonds again. He goes back to Oregon, and he goes to the media, a local paper, and tries to see what their attitude was. He goes to the sheriff and tries to see what his attitude is. He goes to their county commission and he tries to figure out what their attitude is. And his first report was that their attitude was pretty good. They act like that they sort of knew the Hammonds. The Hammonds was a good family, that they was really willing to support the Hammonds. But then I don't know really what happened. I guess the government got to those people. But then he said, well, I feel like we gotta have a review. We gotta, they'd already been sentenced, and there's already, they were supposed to go back to jail, federal prison on the 2nd of January. And so he went to appeal for all the government agencies to have a sort of a hearing or reconsider what was happening to the Hammonds. Like I said, he went to the local, he went to the county, he went to the state, and went to the federal. Nobody would consider, reconsider this case. So they sort of created a movement. The movement was this sort of protesters was going to come, and they had some kind of convoy, and they had a walking. And remember, it's in the middle of winter, it's January. And there were several hundred people show up at Hammond's house, Dwight Hammond's home there, right in Burns. And he welcomes them and greets them on his step, and then the protest is over. Well, my son Hammond said, we never accomplished nothing. We never got the governor to reconsider. We never got the sheriff to take a stand. Hammonds are going to report to jail on, I don't know, a day and a half or next day or whatever it was. And so they decided they had to do something. Now, myself, I hadn't heard about any of these things. I didn't have any plan. I was several hundred miles away. The next thing I hear is, the Bundys have took over the refuge. Well, in my mind, it's a federal building, the whole thing, I tell my sons, I said, you're not just dealing with public land here, you're dealing with federal property now. There's something pretty bad in here. And that was sort of my attitude for quite a while. I couldn't understand what was my boys doing. And I really sort of had that attitude maybe for a couple of weeks. I doubted that they maybe made the right choice. And then I got to thinking, somebody had to do something. Somebody had to do something. And my boys did something. Whether it was right or wrong, they did something. And they held that position for 41 days. And, the media and everything, it sounded like the town hated them. Everybody was against them. The sheriffs were against them. Everybody was against them. But then when I talked to my sons, which I didn't talk to them very many times, but I talked to them, they said the townspeople, they had basically shut the government had scared the town people so bad that they'd shut their schools down, they'd moved their police headquarters into their schools, and just the militia, or not the militia, but the FBI and whatever else, federal agencies had just taken over the whole town, just totally scared them to death. And my son was giving me reports that, hey, we have citizens of the town coming with their children, and we're basically welcoming them, and we're teaching them. we got the ranching communities coming to us and we're teaching them. And people were coming to refuge and they was basically teaching them. What was they teaching them? They was teaching them the Constitution. And teaching them that they had preemptive rights created. And they could see the abuse of the whole valley. There, I don't know, 100,000 acres of beautiful farmland, ranchland, meadows. It had all been turned into what their native, the older man there, native said, it's turned into a big weed patch. There was like 100 families that ranched them from. Harney County once was called the richest county in the nation. Their income, and it was, anyway, great area, great bunch of people, great success in the western flats. Now, Hammonds did report to jail on the 2nd of January, and they went and reported, and now the Hammonds are in federal prison. The occupation was still going on. It wasn't an armed occupation like the media says it was. It was a bunch of, we the people there, basically protesting. And what was they protesting? They wasn't protesting the federal government. And neither at the Bundy Ranch was we ever protesting the federal government. People think we was an armed standoff with the federal government. No, we never protested the federal government. Who was we protesting? We wasn't protesting the BLM. We was protesting our local sheriff and our state people for not protecting our life, liberty, and property. It wasn't the federal job, the government's job to protect our property. It was our local sheriff's job to protect our property. It was our county commissioners. It was our governor of the state of Nevada, the state of Oregon. But let me tell you what the governor of the state of Oregon did. She listened to the environmental community, what Carol, tell me the name, diversity. Yeah, Center for Biological Diversity. Their headquarters is in Tucson, Arizona. So what are they doing up in Oregon? Well, they're doing up in Oregon, they're basically got the governor of Oregon bought off. They're telling her how, I don't know how it's all done through their power. And what they're doing now is they're saying, Governor, you got to do something. You got to do something about what? Well, here these guys are down on a federal refuge, occupying a government building, and Governor, you got to do something about it. What does she do? She basically gives an order to kill. So between the FBI now and the state government, which is the governor, and the local county government, which is the county sheriff, they got a great big deal going. The Bundys and their people that are with her are just teachers. They're not nothing. They're in a vacant building and people are coming to them and they're teaching them. And so one day they were getting appointments to go to other places around the area, and they get an appointment to go to the next county. I don't even remember what the county name is, but it goes to the next county. And they're going to meet with the county sheriff there and a group of the citizens and teach about the Constitution. And there's a group of family, what's their names? Sharks, the Shark family. They're a group that came from Nebraska, I think. They had come to the Bundy Ranch and sung to us, unbelievable their spirit, and they was going to go to this Oregon County and sing. And my sons and LeRoy Finnegan was going to go, and was going to teach a bunch of ranchers and we the people and the sheriff. And of course, on the way there was a roadblock. And let me talk to you just a little about what happened there. I wasn't there, but I did have a son that they did take his cell phone away from him. The FBI didn't know he had a cell phone, and so when this attack's on, he calls Dad and tells me what's going on. So I get a pretty good idea what's going on. What happened is they had somebody that was, his name was McConnell. First name I don't remember. His name was McConnell. He was a federal agent that was at the refuge. And he lined them up to where they would get in their trucks and go and get to this roadblock at a certain time. So this was all planned before it ever happened. And when they got near the roadblock, a car pulled in behind them, turned the red lights on, and they stopped. There were 2 vehicles in this that go into this county. They stopped their vehicle, and I don't know exactly all what happened, but the people that stopped the vehicle started to shoot at the other vehicle that Lavoy and my son was in, and 2 women. And they started shooting. There's one guy in there by the name of Ryan Payne, and he sticks his head out of the window, and there's a red dot on his head. And they get him back in, and then there's shooting going on. And anyway, eventually he gets out, and the rest of them says, well, hey, they're shooting on us, we gotta go. See, the media never tells you that they're on fire when they head down the road. So they head down the road, and they've already told them that they're going to go to the county sheriff and meet the county. If you want to follow us, go. But, you know, they're under fire. And they go down, and of course there's this roadblock. And it runs them off into the snow. And they're being fired at all the time, this big vehicle being fired at. And then Lavoy gets out, and their feeling was Lavoy got out to save the one's lives that was in the truck. They remember there's my son and 2 women in the truck. He gets out, and he folds his hands up in the air, and he says, no, shoot me. And they do shoot him. They kill him. And in the process, they had shot one of the bullets that hit my son in the arm. He has a bullet in his arm. And the 2 girls are not hurt, but they're laying on the back of the seat, and my son's on top of them, trying to keep them down, and they keep a fire into that vehicle. I don't know how many shots, but many shots in that vehicle. They meant to kill everybody. You can hear about rubber bullets and all that. That's not what was happening. They were firing bullets into that vehicle. My guess was that the Lord protected them, but also it was in snow, and there was probably snow was protecting them, and they were shooting higher than that snow, so they was hitting higher in the vehicle, and they was underneath it. Anyway, so now we got a good man dead. We got my son with bullets in a bullet in his shoulder. And of course, they arrest him, and they take him to, I don't know what all happened, but they take him to a hospital, and they take Lavoy's body there, they take my son there, and they basically don't do anything with my son, but Lavoy's dead. Now there's some funny things happen here. 3 of the nurses that checked out Lavoy all of a sudden commit suicide. Yeah. So now we got Lavoy dead and 3 women. And there was a person that was like demonstrating a snowmobile. And he was making a circle up there somewhere and seen what happened when Lavoy got killed, witnessed it. And guess what happens to him? All of a sudden he commits suicide. Okay, so now we got 5 people killed here. It's pretty serious stuff. We have those that were associated there are put in jail. And they take, I don't remember how many of them, 5 of them I believe go to trial, and a jury acquits them. So they're found not guilty. They're turned loose. Then they try the other bunch, and so then they strengthen the charges and build a bunch of other lies, and they basically really don't ever, but anyway, how did they let go? I can't tell you, but anyway, they didn't get off, they didn't get acquitted, they got basically some charges. But Hammonds now are in jail for 2.5 years. Yeah, went back to jail the second time. And remember what my son was trying to do? He was trying to get him to have another hearing, or at least consider this again. Here's the tragic part of this. Our justice system has failed. Our county sheriff